This amateur sketch resembles what many of you say the Rat Man looks like.
Right there.
This is the remarkable story of the Rat Man.
Ollie, just hold on.
The next story was inspired by a viral fictional movie character called the Rat Man. For those that haven't seen it, we encourage you to check it out. We figure it would be appropriate to include him in this segment, as this is a live stream video after all. Here's our take on the legend of the Rat Man. The following footage was discovered deep in the woods by a search party that went looking for 2 missing college students. This was all that was found of the vanished. Those who uncovered the tape and were the first to watch it decided the world would be better off if nobody else ever witnessed the contents of the video. Years later, it has fallen into the hands of someone who thinks otherwise. The original footage has been deemed too graphic for public consumption. This is a shot-for-shot adaptation of the events dictated in the footage. Viewer discretion is advised. These woods are pretty creepy, right? This'll work great for the movie.
You think so? What about me? How do I look?
Pretty good. A very fair virgin for the witch's sacrifice.
You creep. Come on, let's go deeper.
We were just trying to make a short horror movie for our drama class based on the Blair Witch movie that had recently come out. The forest on the outskirts of the town seemed like the perfect place for a dark and mysterious setting. These woods were home to their fair share of urban legends from people around town. Of course, we didn't take any of that seriously. We just thought it would build a good atmosphere.
Ah! Ew! Oh my god! Look at this!
What? What is it?
Just point the camera here. I stepped in something.
Oh, man. Is that a deer?
I think so. God, I think I'm gonna be sick.
It's only half a deer. It looks like something was eating it. Must have been a bear. We stepped in its leftovers.
Shut up. Don't get all investigative on me. This doesn't have anything to do with the movie.
Not unless we improvise. What do you say? Do you think we can work this into the script? I was trying not to seem as shaken as I was, but there was something in the back of my mind that I couldn't deny. If a bear had killed that deer, it would have just left the carcass out in the open, but for some reason, it had been partially concealed by dirt and leaves. Well enough that we walked right into it. I didn't want to say it, but I knew that only a human could do such a thing. Well, what do you think? Can we...
Shh! Look over there, by that tree.
Holy crap! That's when we realized we were being watched by the most inhuman-looking person either of us had seen. He was hairy enough to be mistaken for Bigfoot and covered in filth on every inch of his body. The worst part was that he was almost left exposed except for a few shreds of torn-up underwear.
Hello? Sir, are you okay?
What are you doing? Don't talk to him.
What do you want me to do? I'm improvising.
Fine, whatever. What's your name, sir?
Do you live around here?
Do you need anything? Like maybe some clothes? Ratman.
That's disgusting.
Ratman? Who the hell is Ratman?
What if that's his name? Is that your name, Ratman?
Ratman. Live there. Ratman. Ratman. There. By that point, we were both horrified. We never expected to actually run into something so awful after just a few minutes of walking through the woods, but there we were. The deranged man, if he even was a man, pointed to a well. I don't know what possessed me to do this, but holding the camera made me feel like I just had to get a shot looking down the well.
Can you see anything?
Not really. It's too dark down there.
Turn on the night vision.
Ratman! While our back was turned, that animal pushed us both down the well. We fell on top of each other in a shallow puddle of filthy water. Somehow, the camera managed to survive with just a cracked screen. All we could see was the light from above us, and that horrible man looking down and screaming hysterically. Ratman! 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 Come on, let's get out of here! I realized that well actually led down into a tunnel, so I grabbed my friend's hand and dragged her away from that psychotic hobo as fast as I could. Very quickly, all the daylight pouring in from the well's opening diminished and disappeared, leaving us in complete darkness. The only way we could see anything was by using the night mode of the camcorder and its puny little flashlight. But even without being able to see, we knew where we had ended up, just by the smell of it. That awful stench of raw sewage was suffocating, and what started out as a knee-deep sludge only rose higher and higher as we trekked deeper through the tunnel, looking for a way out. What kind of well draws from a sewer?
I just want to go home. Please promise me we're gonna make it out alive.
I promise. Just hang tight. We'll find an exit shortly. None of this was funny anymore. We weren't trying to adapt any of this for our little film project. We didn't say much to each other despite how confused and scared we were. I think we were both worried that if we started talking, we would start panicking, and then we might just realize that we were already in too deep, and there was no getting out of this situation. The only thing that kept us from freaking out was ignorance. How could we possibly know just how much trouble we were really in? How could anybody expect to see what was lurking in that sewer? After what felt like hours, we finally reached something different. There was a small opening where a few of the sewer tunnels connected, and for a moment we thought we were saved. Look! I see light! We found a drain!
Oh my god, there's something there.
We thought that man from before was so wild and insane that there could never be another person as far gone as he was. But we were wrong. We'd just run into all of his friends, and they were squatting in a circle, devouring the other half of the deer we saw earlier. But then, of course, they noticed us. We thought if we just backed away slowly, we could figure out another way, but we had no idea that we were already cornered. That's when I saw my friend getting devoured in one bite by the unholy Ratman creature, a demon spawn from the sewers of hell itself. That thing, it was a horror beyond the most twisted imagination. I turned tail and ran as fast as I could, screaming for help and forgetting about the camera. Ah! Somebody help me! Please! Ah! Ah!
Pretty disturbing, right? The next story was inspired by this Japan livestream that took place in the late 90s to early 2000s. The basic premise of the show was the next animation portrays a dramatized reenactment of the Japanese reality TV show. We spruced up the story a bit, just to make it more disturbing than it already was. Not that it needed it anyway. Here's what it looked like. Several years ago, back when I still lived in my home country of Japan, I participated in a game show called Survival Challenge. The premise was that I would be left alone in a small studio-style apartment, with nothing but running water, a single pair of underwear, and a plethora of magazine subscriptions that would be delivered to my door. I wasn't allowed to leave until I completed 10,000 individual puzzles that came with the magazines, and none of them counted unless I managed to do them 100% correctly the first time. As for food, I would have to trade in a certain number of completed puzzles with the showrunners in order to obtain simple things like rice and ramen. And to make the whole thing a TV show for public consumption, my only other responsibility was to keep the cameras plugged in and running. I was filmed at all times, and for several hours during the evening, my experience was live streamed to the television network so the viewers could watch me in real time. Of course, you may be wondering why I put myself through something like this. My reason was quite simple. I wanted to become a television personality. I figured this challenge would jumpstart my career. However, when it first began, the first sign I had that things would not go as planned was when I realized that my apartment didn't have a toilet. I wasn't allowed to leave my dwelling and was locked from the outside. My only access to the outside world was the mail slot, and instead of a toilet, I was provided with a bucket. In the beginning, this only motivated me to get through the challenge quicker. As soon as I was left alone, I began grinding at the puzzles, focusing on the crosswords as I had chosen to practice those before the show. When the premise was described to me, I thought I would be working with kids' puzzles that I could easily blow through, but this was not the case. They were exclusively expert-level puzzles that only 0.1% of those who tried were successful at solving. I was never smart with books, so this was of course a great detriment to me. Day number 1. Hello? This camera's working. Hello everyone! I'm sorry I'm not fully dressed, but the first thing I request will be some clothes. I just finished one crossword puzzle, so hopefully I got it all right.
Handsome fella, eh, Jackie?
Maybe after a bottle of sake.
However, despite working on puzzles for days, I never got anything in return. I learned that I had not correctly solved a single one of them, which meant all my work was for nothing. Day number 2. Hello everyone, I've completed over 100 puzzles, but as you can see, I'm still out and about. I haven't eaten anything, and my stomach hurts really bad. If by chance the producers are listening, I would love some damn rice so I can keep working! This terrible luck went on for days, yet every time I thought I was about to die of starvation, I was miraculously saved by a small amount of food. A mere package of instant ramen for a puzzle I had managed to solve. Of course, this still meant I was malnourished. I just had enough energy to keep going. Day number 7. I'm saved! I'm saved! Oh, today is a happy day! Thank you! Thank you so much! I will turn these noodles into brain food! I'll be a genius by the time I get out of here! I had no idea what was happening on the other side of the camera. But I figured since I wasn't being given any clothes, they were enjoying watching me exposed.
He looks like a dork, doesn't he?
To be honest, he kinda looks like my dog.
Are you sure you're not the dog?
I was completing dozens of puzzles every day, but that wasn't enough to keep me entertained. Eventually, just to stave off the boredom, I started to play into the insanity I was starting to feel, hoping that it would make good television. Day number 14. You fool! You will die alone! I shall devour your soul! Heh, you ignorant animal. Do you even know who you're facing off against? I am the crossword samurai, master of all forms of the puzzle martial arts. And I will vanquish your wretchedness from this entire plane of existence. Unfortunately, all that did was exhaust the small amount of energy that I had. I watched myself in the mirror as I withered to skin and bone, scraping by on a diet of 1 pack of noodles every 3 days or so. After some time, my mind became so foggy and delirious that I could no longer hope to get any right answers. Then one day, all my food deliveries just stopped. It's been over a week now without any food. My mind is failing me. I can't even stay awake long enough to do a puzzle. If anyone is listening, please let me out! I can't take it anymore! I don't care if I'm a failure, I just want to be free!
What a loser.
Maybe we should set him free.
Not yet. It's too early for that. He must complete the challenge.
But those sadistic people didn't listen to me. The next day, a letter came through the mail slot that read, "Keep going. You can do it. Japan believes in you." Day number 46. This isn't what I asked for, but I appreciate the support. With the great country of Japan in my corner, I refuse to give up. I will keep going, and I will win the challenge. I'm so close to winning already. I only have 9,999 solutions to go! When I realized just how little progress I had made, I began to believe I would never leave. Knowing that I stood no chance of getting any right answers, I resorted to other means. I started tearing the room apart. The hunger became so unbearable that I started eating anything I could chew, regardless of whether or not it was edible. After long enough, my memory seemed to stop recording. However, all the footage of my actions remained. Day number 60. This is what you brought me to! This is all your fault! All of you! I've come to the conclusion that there is nothing left to eat in this entire apartment! I've been collecting this for some time and it's quite pungent, but with no other option, I'm just gonna pretend it's wasabi soup, a personal recipe of mine! I woke up in a hospital. Apparently, I'd slipped into a coma. The producers came by with a whole camera crew to televise the end of the show. They said that I had unfortunately failed the challenge, but out of the goodness of their hearts, they gave me a measly cash prize that amounted to $100 US. I couldn't even speak. I didn't even feel human. After about a week, I was allowed to go home. On the way there, I was met with countless dirty looks. Like every single person in Japan recognized me. From then on, I knew the next thing I had to work toward was moving out of the country. But first I had to go home and get some rest. Of course, there were no groceries since I've been gone for so long. On top of that, I wasn't really feeling the decor, so I made some rearrangements. I got back to work so I could start saving money to move out of the country. And when I got hungry, I slipped out of my hospital gown, got back into my underwear, and made myself some dinner. Have I gone mad? Maybe. Was it because of the show? Definitely. So yeah. This is the story of how I survived a Japan live stream.
This, hands down, has got to be one of the most disturbing live stream footages that took place back in the 90s. Live streams are typically broadcasted online for other fellow viewers to watch in real time. In this case, such technology didn't exist, but cameras and TVs did, which is what you see being showcased here. A live possession gone haywire. The footage surfaced the internet back in 2011 and has since been removed due to its graphic nature. We obviously can't show much, but from the little footage you see here, it displays a mixture of film and demonic entities, but nonetheless, a frightening video to comprehend. Here's a dramatized version of the infamous quote-unquote live stream. It's been a week since I started looking for a new home, and I wanted to document this journey with a camera I often used. So, one day I came across this old-fashioned house that was in good condition despite its old age. None of the wooden structures had warped, nor did it have the scent of mold crawling on the walls. However, I had my doubts, convinced I should have widened my options. Thunder wailed as the skies grew dark, and moments later, rain began to pour, making the atmosphere creepy and gloomy.
What are you doing?
The old woman selling the house asked, apparently uncomfortable. Oh, don't mind me. I just like taking videos.
Beware from it.
Confused at the strange woman's remarks, I replied, "What did you just say?" Suddenly, she gazed at me with enthusiasm as she tugged on my shirt and said,
You like the house, right? You wouldn't be taking the videos if you weren't interested.
Yeah, well, the house is okay, but I think I'll look around some more before
You don't fit the key in my ear. This house is perfect, and I can offer you a deal you cannot refuse.
She pressed. I could have searched the town for a better home, but the old lady wouldn't stop bugging me about buying it, to the point that she cried through tantrums. Her eyes were restless, constantly roaming the corners of the living room like she was agitated. Since she was offering it to me at such a low price, I eventually caved in, and I was asked to sign some papers before she gave me the keys and left. The interior was spacious, and the house was just a few blocks from where I worked, so it was convenient. It felt like I had everything I needed. All this time, I kept my camera on, bringing it with me wherever I went. Just when I thought it would be a memorable first day, which I would hold dear to my heart forever, it turned into an experience I would regret for the rest of my life. I lived alone in a 2-story house that had 3 bedrooms. One night, I remember talking to a friend on the phone while watching TV. I could feel my eyes become heavy as I was heavily fatigued from the long work week. I could recall closing my eyes for a brief second, but then I got awoken from a loud thud coming from the 2nd floor upstairs. I hung up on my friend's call and immediately turned off the TV, just to see if I really heard something.
Help me!
I could then hear a distinct male's voice. It sounded grotesque and abnormal, almost demon-like. I grabbed a flashlight and immediately jetted up the stairs.
Help me! I can't take this anymore! Someone get this thing out of me!
Now I definitely knew someone was in my house. It sounded like the voice was coming from my bedroom. My first instinct was to call the cops, but something in me decided to go full throttle, so I immediately charged at the door and slammed it open, only to find nothing. I began to think that I was going crazy, but knew that there was some validity to them for the next series of mysterious events. I couldn't sleep on the first evening, so the following day I was worn out, wondering if the events from last night were something I simply made up. Then, eventually, my day went on as usual. I worked at the office during the day, and when I arrived home, the place would oddly feel colder than the previous day, despite having the furnace on. However, unbeknownst to me, my second night would be worse than the first one. I knew I was sleeping, but strangely, I was still conscious. First, I attempted to move, but no matter what I did, I was paralyzed. Then, moments later, my entire body began to bounce up and down violently, like something was controlling me like a puppet.
Ah! Help! Somebody help me!
My bed began to bounce out of the blue, and I was utterly terrified. Then, in a few moments, I felt my body relax as I gasped for breath. My body eventually became stiff, and the unnerving bouncing finally stopped. As I fixed my gaze to the left, facing the mirror, my eyes widened when I saw a shadowy figure standing in the corner of the room. Moments later, I heard ominous whispers speaking in a language I couldn't understand. And the creepiest part was that it felt like a demonic entity was right next to me. That's when someone or something jumped on top of me and began to forcibly stretch my mouth in an abnormal manner. It began to shove its head and then half of its body inside my anatomy. All I wanted to do was wake up from this nightmare. I wasn't always religious, but my grandma used to tell me how essential prayers were. And so I closed my eyes and prayed desperately to be saved. I then opened my eyes and couldn't see that thing anymore. Once in the driver's seat, I had a massive headache, but worse than a terrible migraine was the heavy sensation in my chest, making it hard for me to breathe. Moreover, I felt a stinging sensation in my neck that wouldn't go away. And so, I took a leave of absence and decided to stay home to recuperate. When night came, I was getting ready for bed, but before I could wrap myself in a blanket, I heard a loud knock coming from outside the bedroom. First, I thought it might have been the wind. However, moments later, I heard giggling and scratching, somewhat louder than the knocks. So gently, I got out of bed and opened the door. While walking across the dimly lit hallway, the lights constantly flickered. Then, odd sounds became louder as I approached the attic. I brought a pocket knife with me in case a robber somehow got in. And so, with all my courage, I went up to the attic and said,
"Get the hell out of my house or I'm calling the cops!"
Dead silence filled the room, where in front of me was a canister that dated back to 1973. When I opened it, I found a set of old footage displaying a man named Cody lying on a bed in the same room I stayed in. The way the man bounced up and down from his bed appeared to be possessed by some demonic being. Eventually, I decided to sell the house, convinced I was almost possessed by an evil spirit lurking there. And then I left the canister behind, wishing I would soon forget its contents.
This poor little boy doesn't stand a chance, and neither do the souls that come forth in this household. There's no getting rid of me. Beware, vermin! Beware!
He looks like a dork, doesn't he?
To be honest, he kinda looks like my dog.
Are you sure you're not the dog?